Hello and welcome to Bread of Life, a daily devotional program which each week features a different area pastor. Our speaker for this week is Pastor Jim Wegner of Ansonia.
Hello everyone, this is Pastor Jim. Today and for the next 7 days we're going to be looking at the Israelites and their departure from Egypt and their wandering in the wilderness. We're going to see what we can learn from their journey through the wilderness to the promised land and their release from bondage, because it's a powerful passage, this whole process of going through the wilderness. Exodus is a powerful book when it comes to helping us learn some things about God. And we want to just say, what can we learn about this journey through the wilderness? And one of the very first things that they learned about this journey through the wilderness was this whole concept that God is the provider and sustainer of life. This is very powerful, that God alone can bring man back to life, that God alone can bring man out of death and into life. And he did that in the beginning here in Exodus by bringing them out of Egypt, and he did that through a very powerful bunch of events. We call them the plagues, and how they came about and what was going on with those plagues, okay? Now let's listen to the mindset. Here's people that have been in captivity for over 400 years, okay? They only know slavery. They only live slavery and been involved with slavery. They've had no rights except the rights that the Pharaoh gave them. They had to do what he said, when he said, and how he said it. It was not life. It was a living death. As often we are today without Christ, we're in a living death. That's what Ephesians says. And so this was a living death that they were in, and they cried out for 400 years and said, come and help us. Get us out of this mess we're in, okay? And so God came and sent Moses. You know the story. And Moses went to Pharaoh, and a procession of plagues took place. In fact, there were 10 plagues. There were the blood, frogs, gnats, flies, livestock disease, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, that was a pretty heavy one, and the death of the firstborn, which was really the absolute one that let him go. Now, when I look at these things, I say, I can see the power of God in a mighty way here. And what I see is that you can't control a fly. Nobody can control a fly. Hey, fly, go over in the corner and stay there and stay away from me. That doesn't happen. God controlled the gnats and the flies. They only went where he said they go. They didn't go with the Israelites. They didn't bother the Israelites. The diseases didn't bother the Israelites. So this was a powerful concept of how God was to release them from bondage, because he is the only one that has that ability. He's the only one that can release us from bondage. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 4 says that when we were dead in our trespasses and sin, God made us alive together with him. Just think about that. Alive. We were dead in our trespasses. We were like the Israelites. We were walking around in living form, but we were really dead. We had not experienced life because we were apart from the giver of life. In Romans 6:4 says that we were buried with him in baptism. And he says the same power that brought Jesus out of the grave, brought us up out of baptism, out of the watery grave, and made us alive together in him. And now we have this new life. We have this ability to have life. And he's the only one that can bring that about. He's the only one that has the power to do that. Nobody else could do that. We couldn't do it on our own. We couldn't do it with money. We couldn't do it with education. We couldn't do it with any other form or power that we might have. No matter what that power is, we could not do it except by submitting ourselves to the truth of God. He went into Egypt, and by his powerful hand, he made the Pharaoh let him go. And on top of that, made the Pharaoh recognize there was only God. So as we start this week out, this first thing we need to understand, God is the provider and sustainer of life. Only he can give us life. Only he can sustain life. We need to understand that. We're going to be talking about the wilderness and what's in the wilderness and what we can learn from that. But we need to understand that only God can sustain life as we begin this journey with the Israelites through the wilderness and see what God can teach us in that journey. We want to thank you for being with us today. And remember, You need to always learn to stand upright with God. God's given you the ability to stand before Him in righteousness, and we need to stand before Him in righteousness.
You've been listening to Pastor Jim Wegner of Ansonia, and this has been Bread of Life, a program to encourage you from God's Word.